Hello everybody and welcome to the second episode to this guide to Formula 1. In this episode, I'll be looking at the cars, which is 50% of what makes this sport so great, and it's also 50% of the athlete in the sport, unlike many other sports. If you haven't seen the previous episode, which is touching on the basics of the sport and giving you a brief introduction to what it is, go check that out first and then come back so that you can fully understand this video as well. Let's get started. So in F1, as I said, the cars are half the athletes. Without the cars, F1 would not be what it is today, and there's several components that makes the car so fast. So they travel around 330 kilometers per hour on the longest straights. And to compare this, well, there's some production cars like the Bugatti Chiron that travel over 400 kilometers per hour. However, it's the distance required for a Formula 1 car to reach these speeds and the average speed which they can carry over a track, which is much faster than what other cars can do, both production cars and other race cars. So let's start off by looking at the engine of the F1 car. So the engines operate at a very high speed, around 15,000 revolutions per minute at its highest. What do these revolutions per minute mean? This means that it'll have more power, and although this is impressive that they can produce so much power, they can withstand this for a race that's lasting a long period of time, sometimes 1.5 to 2 hours. Comparing this to your road car, well, that'll max out at around 5,000 or 7,000 revolutions per minute. The 1.6 liter turbocharged engines in these F1 cars generate around 800 horsepower, and an electric hybrid system can generate an additional 160 horsepower. To compare this to some of the average road cars, they might be below 100 horsepower, and some amateur racing cars, like let's say a BMW M Sport or Mercedes AMG road car, might sit around 400 to 500 horsepower. Precision in this engine and in the sport in general is key. It's finding the balance between weight and power output for the engine. The way that the pistons and cylinders fit together is so tight that these parts have to be taken apart after every race and sometimes replaced and rebuilt to ensure that they don't wear as quickly. And so that's why they also use special materials such as carbons and steel alloys, which don't wear very quickly. They're that special and so specific that not every team has the budget or the expertise to develop their own engine. So that's why some big teams such as Mercedes or Ferrari make engines and supply them to other teams, and these other teams can then benefit from their research and development, but they don't have to spend anything on it, although they do have to purchase the engine, of course. Another aspect of the engine which makes it so powerful are the high compression rates and the rich fuels. So many F1 teams are sponsored by large oil companies such as Petronas or Shell, and they develop specific fuels which run in these engines, which make them more efficient but also make them more powerful. And they burn this fuel at an exceptionally high rate, meaning that the pistons move very fast, which leads to higher power output, but also more wear, which is why those special materials are used. These engines cost around 100,000 and are super expensive to run. Now these engines also have a hybrid system which the drivers can deploy. And so let's say you have to overtake, then you can turn on the system and deploy it at a very high rate so that you get an extra boost to overtake. The high amounts of power that this engine produces would be useless without a transmission. So the transmission of these F1 cars. So they use a semi-automatic seamless shift gearboxes with 8 forward gears and 1 reverse gear. So what does this mean? Well, in a regular road car, you would have a clutch and you would have to engage this clutch, lift off the accelerator pedal, shift into another gear, lift off the clutch, and then press on the accelerator pedal again. But in an F1 car, this is not necessary. On the driver's steering wheel behind it, there's 2 paddles which they can click, and the right one would be forward and the left one would be backward or up and down. And they don't have to lift off the accelerator pedal. So what this means is that they can shift gears super fast, like faster than a human can blink, 50 times faster. and that's 0.005 seconds. This means that they can accelerate very seamlessly and reach high speeds very quickly, unlike other road cars. So how is this all achieved? Part of it is the weight components, so carbon and steel alloys which are very light, which allow for the lightning fast gear shifts. In combination with the engine, if these two work very seamlessly, it allows for a lot of power going to the wheels. Although it's powerful, this is only half of what makes it so fast. Because even if it's so powerful and it can transfer this power to the wheels, if there's not much grip, the car would go flying and out of control. The weight and bodywork, in combination with the aerodynamics, are key to the overall balance of the car. So the low weight increases effective power to weight ratio, which helps the car accelerate faster. Every surface on the car is designed considering aerodynamics. There's engineers on the track and back at the bases of the teams working every day on developing new car parts which are aerodynamic. They use wind tunnels to develop these parts and to ensure that they are curved and specially designed for each track as well. And to decrease the amount of drag, these cars also have a drag reduction system, also known as DRS. And what this does, in the rear wing of the car, there's a flap which opens up on long straights. And what this does is it reduces the overall drag and allows the cars to reach much higher speeds on the long straights. However, this is not used in the corners, as in the corners you want a lot of downforce to ensure that you can have the highest speed through the corners as possible. And these cars can theoretically drive upside down at high speeds due to the amount of downforce they develop. So teams tweak the setups of the front wing, the rear wing, the floor height, the panel curves, and very minor wings in order to gain hundredths of a second. And this can really make the difference between a first and fourth place. And this is tweaked for the race and qualifying, as in qualifying you want the fastest time you can get, but in the race you want to have enough speed to overtake. You want to decrease tire wear as well, so that has to be taken into consideration. To have fast lap times, it's essential that the car carries as much speed as possible into the corners. This is achieved through a specially designed braking system. Carbon fiber composites save weight and also allow the car and the brake discs to reach higher temperatures, often up to 750 degrees Celsius. To again compare this to your road car, well, that'll generally reach an average temperature of 125 degrees Celsius at its maximum. Kinetic energy escaping the car as heat is converted in these brakes back to power, which can be used by the engine, called the KERS system or ERS system as well. The technology in these cars is so advanced that they require advanced telemetry systems to monitor data parameters and to analyze in which sections of the track the car is slower or faster and how this can be improved. 80% of the car is updated within a season, and if this would not be done, I could guarantee you that the fastest car at the start of the season would be the slowest car at the end of the season. And the whole car starts with the technology. It's clear that this sport is all about balance. It's the balance between weight and power in the engine. It's the balance between traction and weight within the tires and the car, and the brake distances and the speeds and the technology. And so this all has to fit seamlessly together in order to work and in order to get the fastest lap times and win the race. So in the next episode, I'll be covering the athletes which drive the car. That's the second 50% to which make this sport so interesting. So thank you for watching this episode, and I hope to see you in the next one.